left on the play. Doncic, down court, Reeves.
Dunk it in.
Doncic, 47.
Be careful as long as that man with the ball is in the game.
39, 12, and 8 for Doncic. He gets inside, gets to his spot. He's up to 41. It's his career high in a season opener.
Doncic turns inside, 2 more. 42.
On February 2nd of this year, the Dallas Mavericks made one of the most insulting moves in NBA history. Just a few months prior, Luka had dragged the team to its first finals appearance in 13 years, averaging 29, 10, and 9 to get them there. They fell short because he had a pretty weak supporting cast and he sustained a handful of injuries on his way there. Said injuries continued to be a problem heading into the following season, and while recovering, he put on a good amount of weight. Luckily, the GM kept a level head, recognized that his soon-to-be 26-year-old superstar could simply recover from his injury and work the weight off. Just kidding, he fucked it all up. He ruined everything. He traded Luka and he insulted him on the way out, saying that defense wins championships, and leaking Luka's alleged weight at the time. Now, he wasn't wrong that Luka was out of shape. What he was wrong about was that this is a valid reason to trade him, and that was proven by Luka in the offseason, getting into shape. What a wild concept. So anyways, 4 games into the year, and Luka has 3 40-point games, 2 of which were near triple-doubles, and last night he had a 29-point triple-double. The Luka Revenge Tour has begun. Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and hype the video to help it do better in the YouTube algorithm. Also check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. As if it wasn't already insane enough how good Luka has been, right now it is possible that he is entering his peak. What we have seen thus far from Luka is exactly what I've been hoping to see. After the drama of trading Luka last year went down, all of the narratives piling up both for and against the guy, I just wanted to see a clearly all-time great player go out there and show Nico Harrison just how big of a dumbass he is. Thus far, the Dallas Mavericks are 2-4, and their offense is predictably completely terrible. Defense wins championships, but not if you're the worst offense in the entire NBA. No, like literally for real. They're 30th in offensive rating this year. My God. Luka is averaging more points and assists than Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg combined, and he is doing it on way better efficiency at that. The Lakers, meanwhile, are 5-2 and 3-1 in the games that Luka has played. I do want to talk about the Lakers in general in this video as well, but first let's start with the historic start from Luka Doncic. His 3 straight 40-point games to start the year is one of the hottest starts in NBA history. In fact, only Wilt Chamberlain has started a season with more 40-point games, having 7 straight in 1962, and 5 straight in his 50-point-per-game season in 1961. After him, it's Luka with 3, Anthony Davis, ironically, with 2 in 2017, and MJ with 2 in 1987. That's some pretty excellent company. Beating a Wilt record is damn near impossible, but still eclipsing everyone else in the field is awesome. But speaking of excellent company, he also has the highest scoring start in the history of the Los Angeles Lakers. He has scored 164 points through 4 games, which is 10 more than Jerry West had in 1969. And that was the year that my dad was born, so that's clearly an old-ass record. He has 18 more points than Kobe Bryant had in his 35-point-per-game season, and below him, weirdly enough, is Austin Reeves with 143 points this year. It's a pretty good time to be a Lakers fan. So far this year, Luka is averaging 41.3 points per game, with the previous best Lakers start from Jerry West amounting to 38.5 points per game. Luka is also grabbing 11.5 rebounds and dropping 8.3 dimes. He has shot rather poorly from 3 on extremely high volume, just under 30% on 12 attempts per game. Obviously, he needs to clean that up, but he's been a machine at the rim and from mid-range. He is shooting an insane 78.4% from 2 on 12.8 attempts per game. The guy is just getting whatever he wants as soon as he steps inside the 3-point line. He is shooting 91% right at the rim, 83% from floater range, and 78% on mid-range shots from 10 to 16 feet. He is also getting to the line more than ever with 13.5 attempts per game. This amounts to a 67% true shooting percentage, which would be a career high for him. All of this is awesome, exactly what I wanted to see. I really love basketball that is fueled by a petty energy, and this is just the epitome of that. But what my mind immediately goes to after all this holy shit basketball is fun is how sustainable is this? Now, I don't expect him to remain quite this hot from inside the arc, but I also expect him to improve a lot from outside. Luka has always been a weird shooter to evaluate because his volume is crazy high and he rarely gets catch and shoots. But in his last fully healthy season in Dallas, he took 10.5 threes per game while shooting 38%, making him one of the best shooters in the NBA, especially one of the best pull-up three-point shooters. That doesn't feel like an outlier to me personally, though it is worth mentioning that in the playoffs that did dip to 32%. To me, though, the most important element of three-point shooting isn't even necessarily the shots themselves, the makes and the misses, rather that the defense respects you enough that it opens up other areas of the game. And that is very clearly the case with Luka. He might not be the most consistent outside shooter, but teams are still clearly quite afraid of his ability from out there, and they stay glued to him from like way outside. This is what frees up his inside the arc scoring, which, as we discussed, has been insane so far this year. I don't have the stats for it because I'm actually not sure where this is tracked, but I can also attest just from the eye test, he's been getting a shit ton of and ones, especially mid-range and ones, which he is uniquely capable of generating, probably the best ever at that specific thing. He is both able to initiate contact consistently, but also finish the shot after the whistle. Obviously, I'm not expecting this man to go out there and average 41 points all year, but I wouldn't put it past him to average 35, maybe even slightly more than that. In the 23-24 season, he averaged 33.9, and he didn't have a chip on his shoulder when he did that. Luka's ability to put up eye-popping numbers shouldn't surprise anyone, and to me, it's clearly evidence of why he shouldn't have been traded if you didn't have enough already. But we kind of knew that he could put up big numbers. What of the larger criticisms of his game, like his defense and usage? Well, I'm going to start with the latter. He currently has a 38.8 usage percentage, which is the highest that he has posted in his career, and it would rank him third all time behind James Harden in 2019 and Russell Westbrook in his 2017 MVP season. I don't like this at all purely from a winning sense. I actually made a whole deep dive about Luka, but also Wilt Chamberlain and just this idea of excessive usage and excessive numbers. It's really not most conducive to winning. Obviously, the Lakers look great so far and are again 3-1 with Luka this year, but it hasn't necessarily been against some like great teams. They beat Minnesota with a healthy Anthony Edwards, so that's pretty big considering they got destroyed by Minnesota in last year's playoffs. But they also beat Memphis while Ja Morant was having a fucking hissy fit. More of that in the first edition of Rusty Bucket's NBA News tomorrow. And they beat Miami, who has been pretty good this year, no doubt, but I don't know that they're as good as their record would indicate. Maybe. Like, I'm not trying to say that these are bad teams, but it's also not the most impressive. I'm not trying to take credit away based on competition. I just worry about how effective this kind of offensive approach will be against some of the best teams in the league. They face the Spurs on Wednesday and the Thunder on the Wednesday after that, so that will be their first true test. I have just always generally felt like this approach, the heliocentric Luka ball, it has a ceiling on it. A ceiling that was met in 2024 when he got them to the finals and Luka was hobbled. He did not have the energy to carry the Mavericks against a truly great team, and it all fell apart. What I was hoping would happen is JJ Redick would implement a more balanced offensive approach for Luka, one with less ball handling and more off-ball movement. We saw some of that early on in Luka's tenure in LA, but that kind of dissipated as time went on throughout last season. This year, while I have not felt he's been nearly maximized enough in this respect, he does thus far have a career-high percentage of his two-pointers assisted, and 50% of his threes assisted, which would also be a career high. However, in this case, I do feel like those numbers are just a bit misleading. The assisted percentage metric only tracks made shots. Even still, an overwhelming amount of Luka's threes are coming off of the dribble. So I think the question of Luka's off-ball game this year is yet unanswered. It's too early to tell, but at the very least, there are some encouraging signs. The best version of Luka's game, in my mind, features less constant ball handling, but for this year specifically, I just say let him wreak havoc. I don't care. I'm not going to try to optimize this immediately. Like, is Helio Luka ball the best approach to offense imaginable? Not exactly, but it's still really fucking good for regular season and for putting up big numbers. That does leave him open to criticism if this falls short in the playoffs, though, and Lord knows you don't want to give anything to reinforce Nico Harrison's fucking delusions. But something that Nico wasn't entirely delusional about is Luka's defense. Now, I do think that Luka's issues on that end are overstated, both by Nico and NBA fans in general. I think when a lot of people see an all-time great offensive player who lacks the same impact on defense, they immediately go, well, what about the defense? Like that's some kind of gotcha, like that actually underscores how valuable of a player they are. This was especially prevalent with Nikola Jokic, who was the center on a phenomenal playoff defense that paired with the all-time great offense that he was spearheading. You would think that this would be enough evidence to destroy this narrative for the likes of Luka Doncic, who plays an even less essential position on defense than Jokic, but no. A big justification for this trade was how bad Luka was on defense versus Boston in the finals, and make no mistake, he was quite bad. But again, and I just feel like this piece of history gets left out of these conversations way too much. He was hobbled in that series, like very visibly so. He played through a knee sprain, severe ankle soreness, and a thoracic contusion, aka a massive fucking bruise on his chest that he needed to take a shit ton of painkillers to play through. Like he literally started posting up and putting his back to the basket more frequently so he would get less contact on his chest because it's a lot of pain. His offensive burden was so significant that he was visibly gassed all the time going up against Boston's all-time great perimeter defense. So yeah, he took some possessions off on the other end. I think a natural response to that from ownership should be, man, I really appreciate Luka playing through injuries in this series because we would have had no chance at all without him. But clearly our offense needs some workshopping so that he can have more energy for the other end of the floor. That is better than, again, trading a 26-year-old Hall of Famer. But all of those excuses made, I think they're reasonable, but call them excuses if you want. The man certainly isn't making any all-defensive teams anytime soon. This year, I think he's been fine on that end. Their opponents are scoring more with Luka on the floor than with him off, but early season metrics are generally quite out there, and it's also influenced by like starters playing versus bench and so on. Not that it's the starters are in and then the bench is in, but you know, there's a lot of Luka is primarily playing against starters. The Lakers' opponents have a 119.6 offensive rating with him on the floor, which is ranked about the 5th best offense in all of basketball right now. But the thing is, the Lakers' offense is nearly 11 points better with Luka on the floor, which his offensive rating on the floor would be good for the 2nd best offense in all of basketball right now. Overall, Luka has an 11.4 box plus minus this year, which if it sticks would be the highest of his career. The Lakers as a whole are just under 6 points better than their opponent when Luka is on the floor. The Lakers overall don't have very good defensive personnel, so I'm not expecting them to be a great defense, but currently they're 16th in defensive rating, and I think that's good enough for now. It's enough that I think that issue holds them back from being true contenders if it's not addressed, but the thing is, I think this season is just a little bit more about Luka's revenge tour. So no, Luka isn't a great defender, but just from the eye test, I can tell you that to me, he has looked fine on that end of the floor, which is usually the case with him. But now I want to move on to the Lakers in general. First of all, I'm quite happy with myself for how consistently I stated how high I am on Jake LaRavia, because he has been awesome so far for LA, especially in the last 3 games. I'm going to have a little Rusty Buckets video go up about him today. In fact, it'll be out before this one, so I'm not going to harp on him too much in this video. Please go check that one out. We go over some film and how impressive his numbers have been, but he seems like a home run addition for such a cheap contract. In his last 3 games, he has put up 21.7 points, 7 rebounds, 2.7 steals on 87% true shooting. I'm not expecting that to maintain, obviously, but he is clearly going to be a real rotation piece for them, even starter caliber perhaps. I've also mostly liked Marcus Smart's addition. He is still a little too 3-point happy for how not good at shooting he is, but I don't think that element of his game will ever disappear, unfortunately. That said, whenever he has been on the floor, it has just felt like the Lakers were doing way better. And that was just the eye test. That was just the vibe. I looked at his impact metrics and I was fucking blown away. And this is probably evidence of just early season numbers being crazy, but even still, it's a good sign early on. Not only are the Lakers 10 points better with him offensively, which is kind of surprising, I would not have expected that, they're also 18 points better on defense with him on the floor, meaning Marcus Smart currently has a plus 28.5 on-off swing. Good fucking God, man, that's nuts. Dumb threes here and there I am happy to live with if the results in total look like this. And finally, their most controversial addition, DeAndre Ayton. I think he's mostly been fine. The play finishing has indeed been really solid next to Luka and Reeves, as I expected, and his defense has been kind of whatever, which again is mostly as expected. Thus far, he's averaging 15 points and 8 rebounds. His on-off metrics are pretty brutal right now, but I think a lot of that is a product of him missing time when the Lakers' offense has been insane without him. I don't know. The jury is still very much out with him. From what it's worth as well, Jackson Hayes played probably the best game I have ever seen from him last night versus Miami, so maybe he's made a leap. I'm doubtful on that one, though. Overall, the center position is still very up in the air for them. And as you've no doubt heard already, Austin Reeves has been insane this year. He is up to 31 and 9 averages thus far. Again, those are not going to hold up all year, especially as Luka and eventually LeBron take the ball out of his hands more and more. But it seems like enough evidence that he has another gear to turn it up to, and he still had 26 and 11 yesterday versus Miami, even with Luka. Honestly, I think LA's on-off offensive swing with Luka would be more significant if not for how fucking good Austin Reeves has been in the minutes without him. Like, the Lakers kind of have a good offense even when Luka is off of the floor, which is a luxury that he has seldom had in his career. Austin, so far, in his first 5 games, averaged 34 and 10, which made him just the 6th player in NBA history to start a season with those numbers. Oscar Robertson did it twice, Tiny Archibald did it, and more recently, Harden, Westbrook, and Jokic have done it. This has all happened without LeBron James, which you can interpret in 2 ways. Either that they don't need him, or that they should be even better than they have currently been with him. While I don't think LeBron is still a top 10 player in the NBA like many do, his role last year after the Luka trade I still think would be a massive plus for this team. Upon Luka being added to the roster, LeBron started playing more off-ball, setting screens, cutting, hitting catch-and-shoot threes, making plays out of the short roll, and most importantly, he was a really positive defender for basically the first time since 2020. If he matches that play style and defensive effort this season, I think he raises their ceiling substantially. That said, a lot of good is happening without him, to the point where I think it's fair to say that they don't need him, but only if the goal isn't explicitly winning a championship this season, which I don't think it necessarily is. But if that is the main priority, then there's a few things the Lakers are gonna have to shake up even still. At the bare minimum, I think we're in for a really, really fun season for the Lakers, and especially Luka motherfucking Doncic. And I, for one, could not be more excited. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I love petty basketball. I'm especially looking forward to that Lakers versus Spurs game on Wednesday. Luka and Wemby have been the best players in the West thus far, so should be a fun matchup. Thank you so much for watching this video. Shout out to Rudy for editing it on kind of short notice. But that is it. Goodbye.